What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show here on DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter and Facebook pages. This is going to be a show that if you're watching it live, it's going to be on noon on Tuesdays. But obviously, you've got the opportunity to check this out in podcast version. That includes YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. If you're used to watching the Matt Bernier Show on Fridays, you're going to see a couple of different changes because now instead the recap show will be different graphics and different colors, so it'll be a lot of blues instead of the normal reds that we've got. But the idea of this entire show is basically to take place of what we had with Weekend Wrap, put a little bit of a different spin on it, include some of the things that we talked about on the Friday edition, the preview leading into the weekend. So just kind of give you an overview of what to expect going forward with this show. Again, it'll be up noon on Tuesdays if you're checking it out on live.drf.com or any of the live streaming sort of social media areas and anything else that the Daily Racing Forum is associated with. Again, the podcast, it's got longevity. It can be up for as long as you want. Go back and take a look at some of these races and see how things go. This show is obviously a recap for the weekend of November the 11th, Veterans Day. And let's start off at Aqueduct with the Red Smith Handicap. We had a big full field in here. There was no overwhelming favorite. Ultimately, favoritism landed on Money Multiplier, a horse for Chad Brown that he's always had his little quirks, never the most trustworthy horse. He wasn't trustworthy again Saturday afternoon. John Embriol with the call of the Red Smith Handicap.
Soluble is forced wide. Money Multiplier will look to come through. Down at the rail, the field is in the stretch. Memories of Peter and Spring Quality. And at the rail, here comes Money Multiplier. Three of them across the track. Then it's Get Jets. Call Provision is kicking in late and looking for a way through. Spring Quality on the outside. Here comes Call Provision. Spring Quality, Call Provision. Spring Quality held on.
Spring Quality gets the job done in the Red Smith Handicap. You had 5 horses separated by about a length and change there. Gets the job done for Graham Motion, pays $27.20 on top. Edgar Prado with a very, very solid ride in this spot. Call Provision, one of the Chad Brown entrants, runs second, pays $6.40 to place. The number 3, Get Jets for Tony Dutchrow, $4.70 to show. If you played the $1 exacta, $94.75. The 50-cent try, $337. And if you played the Superfecta and used Money Multiplier underneath in 4th position for 10 cents, it comes back $227.85. Spring Quality is a 5-year-old gelding by Quality Road out of a deputy minister mare named Spring Star, bred by George Strawbridge Jr., a Pennsylvania bred and obviously trained by Graham Motion. Edgar Prado with the ride. This horse is 5 of 9 lifetime, 7 times in the exacta, a shade under $300,000 in earnings. Graham Motion says a freshening could be in line for this horse. Again, a 5-year-old, soon to be a 6-year-old. Gearing up for a 2018 campaign. Motion's quote after the race: "I think he can run in the big races next year. This horse, is very talented." He's only run on turf twice, and I think that's the important thing to keep in the back of your mind, that throughout the beginning portions of his career, they tried to get him on turf back in August and it got washed off, but he had been campaigning on dirt, and he had a big, big long layoff between his career debut and his second lifetime start. That came between October of 2014 and March of 2016, so something clearly went terribly wrong. Now he's got back into the swing of things, and turf obviously is going to be his friend. Distance, I don't think, is any sort of an issue. Clearly, he won this race at 1 mile and 3/8. He earned a 100 Beyer speed figure. Motion seems to think that the sky is the limit as far as potential is concerned. And you know what? He came home in 11 flat. I don't ever like to see bunched up fields at the end of a race, but at the end of the day, with the amount of horses that we're seeing move on as far as this sort of marathon turf division is concerned, whether they've retired or whatever the case may be, they're laid up. Look, any sort of fresh face is always going to be welcome. You look at a horse like Call Provision, who it seems like early on Chad threw him to the wolves and then slowly kind of throttled back a little bit, got him some confidence builders and just went through all of his conditions. I'm never going to really fully trust in him. He's got a nice big late kick. He came home his final 1/8 of a mile in 10 3. But the concern is always he likes to run second against some of the better competition in here. Get Jets, I wonder if this distance is a hair too sharp for him, or too long for him, excuse me. Maybe he wants to go a little bit shorter. And then Money Multiplier. Money Multiplier is what he is. He's going to come with his run. Sometimes it's good enough, sometimes it's not. I can't fault anything that Javier did there. He had a perfect trip up the inside, and he just wasn't good enough. Couldn't get the job done. Spring Quality wins for Motion and company. Now, as far as the picks are concerned, We always do this on Fridays. We come through, we'll give you a pick and some sort of a play that I'll be looking at. I didn't have a super strong opinion in this race. I thought you could go 15 different ways in this spot in a what, 11, 12 horse field, 10 horse field ultimately. So I ended up picking Messi, the other motion horse. I should have known better. Illman liked this horse, spring quality, got the job done, paid a nice, hefty mutual. And I kind of made it clear on Friday that I didn't love the race, so it was going to be a small kind of funny money, an action wager, if you will, a $10 win wager on Messi at certain odds over 6-1. He obviously went off over 6-1, and he ran like a horse that should have gone off over 6-1. Didn't get the job done for me. Swing and a miss there. Not the end of the world. We move on. Moving on to the Bob Hope, 2-year-old, 7/8 of a mile at Del Mar. It's that time of year. Now that the Breeders' Cup's in the rear view, everyone's getting excited about the possibilities and the prospects of these 3-year-olds, soon to be 3-year-olds anyway, come New Year and leading in to the Triple Crown chase, trying to get into the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, possibly seeing some of the stars of tomorrow in races like this. 7/8 of a mile, though, this time of year can always be a little bit of a tricky situation. Some horses, ultimately they're going to be sprinters. Some horses probably want to go 2 turns, but right now there aren't a lot of races unless you want to sit back and wait for a race like the Los Al Futurity, or here in New York, a race like the Remsen, or anything else like that. So in the meantime, you get a race like the Bob Hope. You had some seriously talented horses running in this race. May not have been the biggest field, but it was a very, very interesting race immediately from the gate break. But guess what? We're going to take it as they turn in the stretch. Here's Trevor Denman with the call.
Trying to get involved late. Top of the lane now, and Gravitas is hanging on to the lead. Mourinho chasing on the outside. These two in their own private little match race. Gravitas just keeps on finding Mourinho, can't get him. And Gravitas, the more they asked, the more he gave. And Gravitas and Victor Espinosa take the Bob Hope.
Gravitas breaks his maiden integrated stakes race, winning the Bob Hope. Pays $41.80, going off as a 19-1 chance from the public standpoint. The number 2 Mourinho runs second as your favorite. He went off at 6-5. He pays $3.60 to place. And Beautiful Shot, the horse that, with the buzz horse, if you will, took a lot of money early on for Keith DeSormo. He runs third, $2.60 to show, $1 exacta, 87.50, 50-cent try, 104.90. The $1 superfecta, $1,095. 30 cents. Gravitas, 2-year-old. He's a big old gray horse that runs out there. He is one of 3 lifetime. 2 times he has been in the money. $66,000 in career earnings. Adam Kitchingman is the trainer. Victor Espinosa, a crafty ride on the front end. Triple B Farms, the owner's Malibu Moon, out of Snowtop Mountain. The interesting thing is this horse, Gravitas, he debuted on the turf going 2 turns. And when you look at the pedigree, makes all the sense in the world. Malibu Moon does quite well with his turf horses. And Snowtop Mountain, she was a graded stakes winner going long on the turf. So you figured all along turf would be his friend. We talked about it a little bit in the stakes preview. If you went back and watched his first dirt race, 2 starts back at Santa Anita, he was in behind horses, and he just really resented that kickback. Once he got into the clear and leveled off, he finished really, really well. Well, guess what? He didn't have to worry about any sort of kickback this time around. The blinkers go on. He breaks very, very sharp. Espinosa sends him. The minute he got out to the front, he was never looking back. He finished strong. I thought it was a very, very good effort. He earns a 92 Beyer speed figure. Makes him one of the fastest 2-year-olds already right now. And Adam Kitchingman, after the race, said he's going to be pointed for the Los Alamitos Futurity. That race will be run on December the 9th. It's a grade 1, 2 turns. I believe it's a mile and a 16th. So you'll get the 2-turn question. But when you look at his pedigree, that shouldn't be any sort of real issue for him. We'll find out if better horses show up in that spot. And ultimately, is he the kind of horse that needs to have everything go his own way? I'm at the point right now where I don't think he does, considering he ran as well as he did with all that kickback. He's a baby. He's only run 3 times. He's learning. I don't like to see the giant improvements as far as Beyers are concerned. That second lifetime start, he earned a 66 this time through a 92. I think probably I'd like to see it more of a kind of an incremental sort of situation. But at the end of the day, it's hard to argue with a horse that all he did was go out there and blitz this field. Now we have to talk about Mourinho and a couple other horses, and we'll do that as we talk about the pick and ultimately what the bet was in this spot. I picked Mourinho, and I had more than $50 to win on him. Now, I thought also, as we were loading into the gate at 9-5, I was getting very, very fair value. And ultimately, the gates break, and he's 6-5. So that was a bit of a disappointment there, some shell shock, and a couple of expletives were thrown out on my side of things. But the big concern for me was when he didn't make the front. This was a horse that has done his best running, really all of his running, out there on the front end, setting blistering fractions. I know they had taken the blinkers off, but it's just one of those things. I didn't love my chances the minute I saw a horse like Gravitas, who it looks like distance is going to be no issue for him. when Mourinho had to try to come and pass him, then things were a little bit dicey there. Also note, Mourinho popped back to his left lead. Kitchingman, after the race, acknowledged that he thought Baffert was unsure how far Mourinho wanted to go. Something to keep in the back of your mind going forward. But Mourinho ran just fine. He earned an 89 Beyer. I think he's a talented horse. The problem is, I don't know ultimately his prospects going forward as far as distance are concerned. Beautiful shot. It was a very, very nice effort in here. I thought, all things considered, he's sort of, I don't want to say plateaued, but the 74 Beyer, he's certainly going to need to improve. I think he's a one-turn kind of horse when it's all said and done. The big disappointment in here was Runaway for Simon Callahan. This is a horse that had been put away. They didn't want to run in the Breeders' Cup for a number of reasons. I think 2 turns predominantly, and a horse called Bolt Doro obviously scared him away. I kind of feel like this is what he is, though. Those Runaway and Hides, those are very precocious pedigrees. This horse, he just seemed to be mature before everybody else, all of his other peers. Disappointing effort from him, but take nothing away from the winner, Gravitas. He gets the job done. 92 Beyer. My pick, Mourinho, runs second, and I lose my win wager. Again, I made him a $50. That's nothing more than just kind of a guideline saying I liked the horse. I bet considerably more and lost. And we move on to the next race. The Commonwealth Turf for 3-year-olds down at Churchill Downs this past Saturday afternoon. A Grade 3 event. There was a heavy, heavy favorite leading into the race, and the heavy, heavy favorite did not disappoint. Mr. Misunderstood gets the job done as a 3-to-5 shot is supposed to get the job done. He ultimately pays $3.40 on the win end. It was one of those, I don't want to call it an underwhelming race, but it kind of was, because Mr. Misunderstood was just head and shoulders above everybody else in this spot. Parlor runs second, pays $3.40 to place. Mr. Cub, $3.80 to show, $2 exacta, $11.80. $2 trifecta, $72.80, and the $1 super comes back, $146.70. Mr. Misunderstood, Brad Cox has done a fantastic job, and here are the connections. He's 8 of 12 lifetime. He is unbeaten on the turf. He's a perfect 7 for 7, over $360,000 in career earnings, bred by Athens Woods. Brad Cox trains Florent Giroux. Beautiful ride here. Really didn't have to overthink this one. Get him out into the clear and let him run. Owned by Flurry Racing Stables. Arch by Jody's Delight out of Afternoon Delights as far as the damn sire is concerned. Mr. Misunderstood, again, it's one of those instances where he hasn't really done anything wrong. He has a nice turn of foot, but the big problem isn't the concern. It's not even a problem. The concern is that he's not overly fast. When you look at it from a speed figure standpoint, he earned an 86 Beyer speed figure here, and that's kind of on par with what his career has been. We're going to take a look at his lifetime PPs right now, and I say his lifetime, they're not that long. He's only going back, he started 12 times in his career, and he's 8 of 12 lifetime. He's 7 for 7 on the turf, but you see those Beyers, he's not getting any faster. His last 4 races, all of them since coming off of that layoff, 88, 89, 89, 86, all he does is go out and win races, so how can you really argue with that? But there is a part of me that thinks if at some point he's going to take that next step, and who knows, he's a 3-year-old, there's no reason to think that as a 4-year-old he can't take a significant step forward, but if he's going to run in those races, he's going to need to take a step forward. Generally, these middle distance races, mile, 16th mile, and 8th, you're looking at somewhere in the high 90, low 100 Beyer speed figure range, and thus far he's just not gotten to that point. Now, perhaps it's because he hasn't had to run that fast, and he's just been facing inferior competition, but it is one of those things that just sticks in the back of my mind. Something else, if you're looking at this race and you want to make a notation, the final time of 1:46 and 4 for a mile and a 16th, that's not fast by any stretch of the imagination. Florent Giroux, after the race, though, said the turf was definitely soft. It's officially listed as good. Something just to keep in the back of your mind, that turf course probably had much more moisture in it than maybe the official ruling or the official rating would suggest. Giroux himself said he felt like that turf was significantly softer than maybe that good going would have you suggest. As far as the pick and the bet is concerned, I wasn't trying to get cute. No sense trying to reinvent the wheel. Mr. Misunderstood laid over this field. I made him 7-5 on my value line. I knew I was never going to get 7-5. So he was my pick, but then I tried to get a little bit cute and tried to make something out of nothing here and say, Mr. Misunderstood, I think he's going to win. I chose to try to take a shot with Gorgeous Kitten underneath with the $10 cold exacta, and again, just the denomination, that's entirely up to you. It was just nothing more than me trying to turn something into nothing, and it would have been decent, I believe, for 2. The probable exactas were coming back $30, so I was trying to make a little bit of something there. Unfortunately, Gorgeous Kitten, not quite good enough, can't get the job done. Parlor ultimately runs second in this spot. Again, just one of those races, sometimes when the favorite looks too good, they're just going to be too good. In this instance, that was Misunderstood. The featured event up at Woodbine Sunday afternoon was the Autumn Stakes. It was another relatively short field in the grand scheme of things, but you had some big names in there. most notably Melmich. Melmich is a horse that was just coming into this enraging form, unbeaten in 2017, and he had a case to be made anyway that he could arguably be Canadian Horse of the Year. No disrespect to the likes of Pink Lloyd and anyone else that would be in the conversation, but Melmich's 2017, if he was able to get the job done on Sunday, would stack up very, very favorably against anybody else's. Unfortunately, there was an upsetter to the party. Robert Geller with the call.
Melmich angles to the outside and the race is on. Western Reserve, Tail of the Nile, Gigantic Breeze on the outside. Melmich is 3 behind coming now, and Gigantic Breeze has gone up to take the lead narrowly from Western Reserve. Melmich, I don't know today. Gigantic Breeze in front, and Melmich trying desperately, but Gigantic Breeze is going to win. Gigantic Breeze has turned the tables on Melmich in the Autumn Stakes.
You could have had Gigantic Breeze for $40,000 on December the 2nd of 2016. All he's done since then is just go on a tear. He's a graded stakes placed horse, and now he's a graded stakes winner. He wins the Autumn Stakes, pays $9.80. Melmich, you saw him come on at the end. He tried to get there, just couldn't quite get the Gigantic Breeze. $2.10 to place your $2 exactor. $13.50, $2 triactor, $31.70, and the $1 superfecta, $47.45. Gigantic Breeze is a 4-year-old gelding by Giants Causeway out of a Dixieland band mare called Dixie and the Breeze, bred by Stan Dodson, trained by Alexander McPherson, owned by Hopefield Farm. 6 of 17 lifetime, $380,000 in earnings. He's an Ontario bred. You want to talk about a horse that just continues to take steps forward. I have to be honest, coming into this race, I looked at it and said, how in the world is he going to be able to turn the tables on Melmich? I understand he had won the Presque Isle Mile, and he had a big, big turn of foot. And Gary Boulanger said he was well aware of that. He's ridden this horse a number of times. I had a hard time seeing any scenario where he could turn the tables. And guess what? He did just that. He earned a 98 Beyer speed figure. He came home in 29-1. And he held off a really, really talented horse in Melmich. You can't overstate how impressive this horse has been. Now, the interesting thing is to hear the connections. McPherson, after the race, not keen on running this horse in the closing day featured event. That's the Valedictory Stakes at 1 3/4. But Ron Gierking pointed out in the post-race recap that is up on DRF.com that this horse running for that $20,000 tag, he's eligible for a lot of races down at Gulfstream Park here in a few weeks when they run the Claiming Crown series of events. So don't be surprised at all if you see this horse, Gigantic Breeze, possibly try to get on the dirt and see if he can handle something down there, or even the turf for that matter. I know he's 0 for 4, but keep in mind he was really a different horse back then. Now he's just really kind of found himself, so I wonder if that could transition over to the turf. At any rate, fantastic job by the connections all around. Gigantic Breeze gets the job done in the Grade 2 Autumn Stakes Sunday afternoon at Woodbine. He earns a 98 Beyer, and again, it's hard not to root for these kind of horses that when you saw him, you could have had him for a little bit of money here and there when he was in a non-winners of 2 lifetime acclaiming event, and he just continues to take steps forward now, a graded stakes winner. Racing, although we don't have any sort of in-depth analysis in some of these races, but Laurel on Saturday afternoon, they had a giant day of racing down in Maryland, and we're going to show you the stretch runs of 4 of those races right now.
Now and Vitrazo trying to hold on to the lead from Take George Paul is second. On the middle of the track is Almond Roca. They're followed by Wicked Up Pacific Gale next, and way out in the middle of the track, Caught Dreamin' is trying to come alive for the final furlong. Caught Dreamin's now moved to third, the far outside. Here is Take Charge Paula, Resilient, and coming back for more. Take Charge Paula, Take Charge Paula, Caught Dreamin', Take Charge Paula, Caught Dreamin'. Vitrazo swooping on the far outside, trying to join as well. Wide open affair, it's Sonic Mule just in front from Prince of Hemp, and Tale of Silence driven left-handed in the middle of the track, joining in as well. A furlong left to go. Sonic Mule's in front, Prince of Hemp, and Tale of Silence keeps on coming on the outside. Prince of Hemp digging down. Prince of Hemp's got some class. 4 for 4, Prince of Hemp from Tale of Silence. Sonic Mule's in, and why she told me to go down to the inside, and they're into the stretch now, and it's a different style kicking again, a different style from Barry Lee, then Blame It on Honey, and Cowboy Karma under a steady drive on the far outside, but a different style may have given him too much to do. A different style, a different style, a different style, and the James F. Lewis to win by 2.5 from the closing Cowboy Karma. Barry Lee, monster race from a Fleet Willie. He was left flat-hoofed at the gate, leads it by 2 lengths in the last 3/16 of a mile. Discreet Lover second, then Watershed third, Just Call Kenny in Fellowship. A Fleet Willie still there now with 1/8 of a mile left to go. A Fleet Willie in front, and Discreet Lover, the medal running, coming back for more. A Fleet Willie in the Richard Small Stakes. What a performance.
Dave Rodman with the calls down at Laurel Park. A Fleet Willie, that final race, we've got to touch on that one a little bit more because a case can be made that the performance of the weekend, I know there were graded stakes wins and all sorts of other good stuff, faster races on the time. A Fleet Willie's effort in the Richard W. Small was nothing short of enormous, mainly because we're going to take a look at the start. Take a look at how poorly he gets out of the gate. That's him spotting the field about 3 lengths right now, and that's not the end of the problem. He's going to go into this first turn already a little bit wide behind the 8 ball, especially with the pace, and you're going to see pretty darn quick. He's going to get pinched and he's going to be thrown around here a little bit. I thought this was just an enormous effort, no matter how you chopped it up. It's something that just... The speed figure, we're all sort of prisoners of the speed figure because it is one of those things where if they're not fast enough, they're not fast enough, period. But that's something that is not quantified in something like a Beyer speed figure or a Timeform US rating or any of these other speed figures that you throw out there. The fact that this horse encountered that kind of an issue at the beginning, especially considering he figured to be forwardly placed, and he overcame all that and still went off and won like a good thing. You could hear it in Dave Rodman's voice. It was just a fantastic effort. Just a tip of the cap to a Fleet Willie. A phenomenal effort there. He wins the Richard W. Small. You saw a couple of other fantastic performances down there at Laurel on Saturday afternoon. Prince of Hemp looks like he could be a nice 3-year-old. Continues to improve, and he's unbeaten thus far. Hasn't done anything wrong. My son, Barry Lee, I was a little bit disappointed in his effort, but good day of racing at Laurel. Always good stuff going on with our friends down in the Mid-Atlantic. Something that we're going to be doing here on this show every week is kind of giving you the top performances from a Beyer speed figure standpoint on a chart here, whether it's the dirt, whether it's the turf. This is going to be every week, and you can go through whether you want to throw these into some sort of a stable watch, anything you may have. I think it's just worth noting going forward. Now, the 2-year-olds, they're going to disappear here over the next few weeks simply because once they turn 3, the 2-year-olds, they're not going to be ready to run for a little while. So let's take a look at this chart here. This is on the left-hand side. You're going to have the dirt figures, and on the right-hand side, you'll have the turf figures. And they are 2-year-old males, 2-year-old females, 3-year-old males, 3-year-old females, as well as older male and older female. For those of you that are listening, I will run them down for you quickly. We'll start off with the dirt horses. 2-year-old male, the fastest Beyer speed figure of the weekend, was earned by Gravitas, winning the Bob Hope. He earned a 92 Beyer speed figure. The 2-year-old females, it was co-highest Beyers in this entire group here. Silver Bay, Starship Bonita, they both earned 76 Beyers. 3-year-old males on dirt, Vencedor, as well as My Boy Tate, they both earned 92 Beyer speed figures. 3-year-old female Burned, a filly that won one of those races down at Laurel this past weekend, a 92 Beyer. Mr. Jordan, the older males, it's hard to argue with a horse that all he does is win down at Gulfstream Park West. Get him away from that area. Obviously, he's not quite as good, but he earned a 103 down there in the Sunshine Millions preview. And then for the older females, April Gaze earns an 84 Beyer. As far as the turf horses are concerned, the 2-year-old males, Colonel Tom, an 83 Beyer speed figure. The 2-year-old fillies, Philfila, I believe that's how you want to pronounce that, 77 Beyer. The 3-year-old males, Super Tappet, Racing's My Game, 90 Beyers. You're going to see Super Tappet's name show up in another one of our daily racing form programs in a few days. I'm not going to give it all away, though. Super Tappet, a name to keep an eye on. 3-year-old female on the turf. What? Painting Corners. In It for the Gold. They all earned 80 Beyer speed figures. Older male, Spring Quality. We saw him earlier on in this program winning the Red Smith. He earned a 100 Beyer speed figure. An older female, Celestial Insight, earns an 89 Beyer speed figure. Again, it's one of those things, just if nothing else, I think just for those of you that like to take notes, that like to maybe throw something in your DRF horse watch or whatever else it may be, maybe some of these names you go back, take a look, throw it in, take a look at the replay, see what you missed. And maybe some of these horses, particularly the 2-year-olds, maybe we see them come up again at some point here in the near future. This is the weekend's best performances from a Beyer speed figure standpoint in all of these divisions, both dirt and turf. Now, let's transition from the ponies over to the pigskin, which for this week, unfortunately for me, is a crying and a touchy subject because we go on to the NFL trifecta for week 10. NFL Week 10 trifecta. Now look, for me, this is a thing that we do on the show on Friday. We go through, give you 3 games that I like on the slate on Sunday afternoon. It could be Monday night as well, depending on how things go. And ultimately the goal, trying to make some cash. But over the long run, it's a marathon. And I have to keep telling myself that because unfortunately right now, we're in a bit of a hole right now. For those of you that are unfamiliar, you're trying to beat the VIG, got to beat the juice, got to get up to 52.0 0.38%. That's the goal, to ultimately make money, to beat the house, to beat whomever it may be. So right now, leading into this week, 9-11-1, thought things were looking up for us throughout 3 games. I'll admit I didn't get to see much football this weekend because we were out and about on Sunday afternoon, so I just saw results. None of them good for me. Coming into this week, I liked the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming back, you get Leonard Fournette back. Guess what? Fournette was basically, I don't want to call him a non-factor, but I think he only ran for 33 yards on 17 or 18 carries. A bit of a disappointment there. Ultimately, they needed a field goal to get to overtime and win this thing. The Jags win by 3 points. Unfortunately for me, that does not cover the 3.5 that I laid on them. We go on to the second game, the Vikings at the Redskins. I think Minnesota is a good team. I don't think they're a great team. And I thought Washington at home, this felt kind of like a must-win situation for them. They were getting a 1.5. You know, if you've watched the show on Fridays, how much I love a good home underdog. Well, they lose, and they don't cover the number. 38-30 final. Minnesota moves to 7-2. They are among a number of teams at 7-2, including my New England Patriots. Just an absolute blowout last night in Mile High. Don't worry about that. That's neither here nor there. And the third and final game for me, the Cowboys at the Falcons. The Cowboys were catching points. I know there was no Zeke Elliott, but I kind of figured this team was starting to put it all together, and I said on Friday what I had said at the beginning of the year. I thought the Falcons were going to take a step back from that Super Bowl sort of, I don't want to say performance, but that Super Bowl form when they got there and they looked like the best team in the NFL. They have taken a step back, but unfortunately for me, Sunday, they didn't look like that. They went out there and blew the doors off the Cowboys 27-7. Clearly, the 3 points that I was catching for the Cowboys, not nearly enough. I needed 20 if I was going to get to a tie game, 17 for those mathematicians out there, that would have worked out for me. But it's a situation where, look, 3 losses, that puts us in quite a hole now. 9-14-1 on the year. Overall, the percentage drops down to 39.58%. I own it. I know there are people out there, I've had a number of comments that I've seen that said, you know, why am I listening to this guy? Totally fine. I'm not saying you have to. Look, if you've been fading my plays all year, you're way ahead of the game right now. You're clipping at almost 60%. You're over 60%. But keep the faith. This is really not much different than it was last year. Remember that, for those of you that have been around for this entire thing. Things were slow, but finally that ball started rolling. Toward the end of the year, we got up just a shade over 52%. Not quite to the 0.38, but we got over 52%. Hopefully that's the way that we're going to trend again. And as always, 3 games on the Friday show, the Matt Bernier Show. Again, if you watch this show, noon on Tuesdays, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle, that is at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. This show is after the DRF Players podcast. Peter Thomas Fornatal and Jonathan Kinchin. If you can't listen to it live on Tuesdays, you have podcasts all over the place. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. On Fridays, you got a big old block of programming now. At 11, the boys, the Players Podcast, they come on. They'll bring it to noon. Noon, the Matt Bernier Show. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. We'll go over some stuff for the week, and then we'll get you ready for some racing on Saturday and Sunday. And then after that show is over, we lead in to the latest edition of Out of the Gate with Dan Ellman, Mike Beyer, myself, Nicole Russo, Jonathan Kinchin, Craig Milkowski, you name it. 15 million people all over the place. Whatever you could ask for, it's on there. So now you've got a little bit of a block on Tuesdays if you watch live, and you got a nice block on Fridays. But again, you can get it all in podcast version all over the place. Thank you to the boys in the back. Thank you for listening to this entire thing or watching it if you do on YouTube. We're going to iron the kinks out a little bit, but we're on our way. This is the Tuesday, the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show. Best of luck. We'll catch you again on Friday when we go over some racing for this upcoming weekend.